r/ProRevenge. Posted by user GraySpot00. Downstairs neighbors wouldn't turn down music, nuked them from orbit. Was suggested to cross-post from r/malicious compliance. I was inspired by a recent post to tell my own bad neighbor story. Can't think of a better place to post it. Flashback to 2014 or so. I moved out on my own in 2013 and moved into an old house converted into a 2-floor apartment, directly across from my future in-laws. The downstairs neighbors were loud. Blaring music at all hours, yes, all of the hours, wouldn't cut the grass or take out the trash on our shared schedule. Crappy neighbors, but never bothered me directly. The guy was pretty chill when sober, and would turn the music down a little when I texted him. He was okay until his girlfriend moved in. Now add shouting matches to the mix, and all of a sudden my request to turn down the music makes him turn it up. I can barely walk on my super thin floor without her banging on the ceiling with a broom. I was okay since I am a heavy sleeper, and could sleep through anything. My wife moved in, and I quickly found out that she is quite the opposite. Fan on turned at a certain angle in the doorway of the bathroom, door closed halfway, blackout curtains with them taped to the wall so zero light comes through, zero sounds other than the fan, you get the idea. I told her that we can't expect them to remain silent when she's ready for bed, we need to be reasonable, but the wall rattling music needs to stop during the night. She hated it during the day, but I told her there's nothing we can do then, so she would go to her parents' house a lot during the day. I talked to neighbor guy, he said, yeah man that's cool, but it turns out the girlfriend wasn't having it, and his attitude then changed to, yeah well it's our house so you can go F yourself, if you think you can tell us what to do and you can move out if you don't like it. Something definitely had to change once she was pregnant, and then the baby came. So I did the only thing I could do. I fought fire with fire, and maliciously complied with the law to the T. I could only report them for noise after 11 p.m. I now forget the morning hour when the noise could start, but I believe it was 9 a.m. My dad has these huge old concert speakers in his garage. Professional grade, black leather bound, 5 feet tall and 3 feet wide, and a pretty nice, vintage stereo/amp. He has 2, but my apartment was so small I sadly only had room for 1. We replaced our coffee table with this thing, laid face down onto our thin, office carpet. Tired of his crap tunes, I tested this Geneva Convention breaking device when they weren't home. Holy cow! I had to take everything down from tables, counters and shelves because they would shake off. I prepared audio files to feed the stereo. I was giddy like a kid with a new Christmas toy. I turned it on when I left for work and got my wife up to send her to her parents. I came home from work, and hung out at her parents until it was close to bedtime. They resisted for 3 days. On day 2, I found a pile of manure on my doorstep, but it didn't faze me. I cycled between sign/saw/ square waves in clashing chords, marching music, Washington Post march on loop, preaching clips. They weren't just atheist, but outspoken anti-Christian, so it was a must. The most stupid songs you could think of, Captain Planet theme song, chicken dance, etc. This poor old house rattled in ways I didn't think possible. The vibrations from the sine wave would make your vision blur. I eventually got a text from him that read, "Sorry man, you can stop now." I did not. He needed a few more days to let it sink in. Plus I had so much fun putting it together. They complained to the police and the landlord. There was nothing they could do, since I wasn't doing anything wrong. I didn't even hear music during the time of peace to follow. It was so quiet. They would build up their courage, and try again every few weeks when I wasn't home, but my wife was. I then showed her how to tame the beast so she could let it loose while I was away. I had to give them a spanking every now and then, but they learned. They were so happy when we moved out. Posted by user Red23011. Don't fire me so you can hire your nephew. This happened several years ago. I was working for a small medical supply company as the IT manager. Business was bad and eventually, The IT department had to downsize to just me. During this time they brought in a new CFO, that I had to report directly to. Let's call her Pam. Pam had zero knowledge of IT and how things worked. Her motto was, if it ain't broke don't fix it. PC/server life cycles didn't exist. We don't have to pay for licensing to keep our firewall updated, it's working just fine now. I went from having an annual budget, to a wish list which she would deny everything I asked for. The couple that owned the company were real pieces of shit too. One time we had a quarterly meeting, and people were asking about how secure their jobs were. The owner said that nobody was getting laid off, and that our jobs were all secure. This was at 5 p.m. on a Wednesday. The very next morning at 9 o'clock they laid off 6 people. At noon one of the owners showed up to show off the Escalade that he had just purchased that morning. During the first 6 months that Pam was there, she started firing everyone that worked for the old CFO, and replaced them with her friends and family. 3 of her bridesmaids from her wedding, a few years prior, got hired to replace those that she fired. I knew I was on borrowed time. After she had been there for 9 months I was the only one left, out of what was about a dozen people that worked for the old CFO. I knew my time was running out. I had been looking for work but the 2009 crash just happened, and the job market in my area went south quickly. Sure enough, she called me into HR, and blindsided me with an entirely trumped up charge that she claimed happened the day before. I was working with the VP of sales on a project that entire day, so I had a witness. I asked to bring him in, since my boss was lying, and was told, "This is not about him, this is about you. Remember kids, HR is there to protect the business, not do what is right or legal in some cases." Needless to say, I knew my days were numbered. The next morning I get introduced to an IT expert who just happens to be Pam's 21-year-old nephew. He was to shadow me and evaluate everything that I did to see if we could streamline any processes. In other words, they wanted me to train him to do my job. I quickly learned that this kid had absolutely no knowledge of IT. He's the kid people think is an IT expert because he can hook up a PlayStation to a TV. He didn't even know how to join a PC to a domain. So I knew what had to be done. The inventory, billing and shipping and receiving were all run by scripts that I created on the server. They were all run using the domain admin account. I raised quite a fuss about giving him the domain admin account in front of Pam and him. I then loudly proclaimed that I was going to change the password to it, since you can't have people who don't work for the company to have admin access to our network. I was overruled and was told to give it to him. I complied, but I also showed him multiple times how to change passwords on the domain. I even had him write it down to make sure that he could do it. I really stressed the importance of changing the admin password, and deleting his local account the second he is no longer consulting with us to him. I showed him a few things, but nothing in regards to what really made the company run, that day. There wasn't enough time in a year to bring this kid up to speed on how to run that place due to his complete ignorance of IT. I come into work the next day and sure enough, I was let go because her nephew had found my skills lacking in many areas. I collect my last paycheck and head home. The next morning I get a call from the CFO and owners. Apparently, her nephew wasn't quite up to speed on everything we did there, and she was graciously offering to pay me my regular salary to come in as a consultant, and get her nephew up to speed on the IT infrastructure. I told her that I was now an independent contractor, and if she wanted my services I was going to charge her $200 per hour with a 250-hour minimum. At that point, she told me that she was going to call the police, and have me arrested for what I did if I didn't come in and fix everything. My response was, "Just so we're clear, you fired me, replaced me with a completely unqualified idiot, and now you're threatening to call the cops on me if I don't come in and fix what he did? I'll hold, please call the police and let me know what they said." She started cursing at me and hung up the phone. Turns out her nephew did actually learn something from me. He changed the admin password after I had left. The one that ran all the scripts for inventory, billing, shipping and ordering. According to some of my coworkers, The place was dead in the water for several days, until they could get a real consultant in to go through the documentation that I had created and fix the issue. The nephew was immediately fired, and Pam was gone within a month. TLDR, don't try to replace me with your idiot nephew that isn't smart enough to not bring your entire business to a screeching halt. If you like these stories, hit that like button, and leave a comment below. You can upvote these stories by pressing the links in the description. If you want to hear more stories from me, hit the subscribe button, and press the bell icon to be alerted when a new video is posted.